The following presentation is part of the Technology and the Corporation Conference Series, sponsored by MIT's Industrial Liaison Program.
All right, thank you, Don. I must tell you that it's quite an honor for me to be here. No one was more surprised than I that I was selected by Boeing a number of years ago to attend MIT Sloan Fellowship, and I'm always challenged. I have been this morning. I've sat there and wrote myself many notes to go check on things because often in the day-to-day of doing your business, you don't have time to stop and think about innovation or structure or a lot of the things that get talked about and thought about here maybe all day, every day. I'm going to start with a quick story, though. It was May of 1985. I had just graduated from MIT. We were sitting at home. We lived out in Needham. And I sat there at the table. I was in my early 30s, and I said, I cannot believe that I'm a graduate of MIT. I'm from Kansas. MIT's meant things you put on your left hand or right hand to catch balls. My son, who was in the first grade, was sitting there watching and listening, and my wife said, well, I never knew anybody who went to MIT. And I said, I knew a guy in my class went to MIT. Larry Hare went to MIT. And my wife said, was he smart? And I said, oh, he was the smartest guy. He's the smartest guy I ever met. And my son, who's first grade, sat there and said, smart people go to MIT? And I knew I had a problem. And as I thought back on the year, my son had been really sweet to me, but he never wanted to be seen with me in public. And I couldn't figure this out. I'd say, let me walk you out to the bus stop, and he'd go, no, it's okay, Dad, I can walk out. And we'd go to a school program, and I'd wave at him, like a dad does, and he'd kind of go. And so I said, what's going on? And my wife, who's very perceptive, said, well, son, do you think your dad's not smart? He said, well, he needs a lot of help with spelling. And, the first grader, the toughest thing in the world is learning all those spelling words. And I'd go to my office after dinner, and I never have been able to spell. That's why I like computer programming, because as long as you were consistent, it didn't matter if you could spell or not. And I would sit there writing my papers, and I would holler down the hall, Rhonda, my lovely wife, how do you spell whatever it was? And she would roll her eyes, and she would tell me how to spell it, and I would type it in. Of course, nowadays, with all this technology, I would have just typed it in as close as I could get, and it would have told me what it was. But in those days, you actually had to know how to spell. And my son was absolutely convinced that MIT was a place where mid-level executives who couldn't spell went for remedial training. But we all know better than that, and it's a place of great thought by very, very bright people. And if you stick it out with me for the next few minutes, I will promise you a couple things. You probably will not find any great thoughts in what I'm about to say. You'll probably not make lots of notes about things you got to go check or websites you got to check. But hopefully you'll hear a story of people committed to manufacture in the United States great products for great customers. And I'm going to weave into it a story of how our workforce, which is highly unionized, I heard that mentioned a while ago, is an absolutely integral part of making this company successful, both now and in the future. So I'm going to talk about who we are, some of the challenges and opportunities that we have, our approach. Some of you may have heard, one of the things that happened when I was here at MIT, when I would introduce myself and say that I was from Kansas, people would ask me how Dorothy and Toto were doing, and which I thought was absolutely hilarious every time I heard it. And and 60 years of my life, most of which was in Kansas. I had a wonderful year here and a couple wonderful years in Seattle. Other than that, I've been a Kansan. I've never seen a tornado. That's true today. I've still never seen a tornado, but I've certainly seen the aftermath of one. And I'm going to show you a little bit about one that hit our plant just a few weeks ago, and talk about what a galvanizing effect that was, and how some of the things that we've done to try to really harness the power of our employees has paid off just in ways that frankly brings tears to my eyes when I think about it, about the job that they've done just in the last few weeks. And then, of course, Q&A, if I don't wax too eloquent here. So our company, like was said, is a spinoff from Boeing. We found ourselves not in the center of the strategy for Boeing. A lot of what we do, Boeing was shifting to their supply base, and a very capable supply base, and we found ourselves competing with external suppliers to Boeing who had access to capital and their own innovation and could bring R&D and those sorts of things to the table. And so in mid the last decade, 2005, Boeing spun us out. We were about $2.3 billion at that time and about 8,500 or so employees. You see we've grown quite a bit, not in just a little part due to the very strong growth that Boeing, our primary customer, has experienced for the kinds of products that we build. So we build, and I'll show you some pictures of what we build, and we're now at about 15,500 people. We have sites around the globe, but we are anchored primarily in the U.S. and a strong presence in the U.K. as well. Very large manufacturing capability. This is our worldwide operations. Again, we started in Kansas and Oklahoma and have added a number of sites throughout the globe. Again, 15,000 employees and $4.9 billion in revenue last year, growing this year. And again, lots and lots of square feet. Our supply base, we have a global supply base, although the majority of our supply base is in the U.S. It's growing internationally. I was struck with the concepts of things that have been talked about how innovation and production, how they spur one another when they're tightly linked. We believe that strongly. We have our design centers co-located with our production centers. We believe in a very tight spiral. It's not a circle, it's a spiral. It's like the spiral on your notebook, where you just are continually turning the crank and increasing. Hey, Tim, one of my best customers sitting right there. Sorry, I'm easily distracted in case you get. But I think about it as a spiral of continuing innovation, and it's very hard to keep, in my opinion, in the kind of big, heavy manufacturing that we do. It's very hard to keep that tight if you're trying to disperse your innovation and your manufacturing engineering and your production and your supply chain management and all those things. But we do have a broadly dispersed supply chain and driven. I was struck with the comment earlier. We don't all sit here and design. Malaysia would be a great place to go visit 4 times a year. Let's build a plant there. You talk about what does it take to get the capital, the people, the product to where it needs to be, and what's the most cost-effective way to do that. And that's certainly been has driven our supply chain. This is a look at our products. We build 100% of the 737 fuselage in our Wichita facility. You'll notice on this a picture of the Boeing products. You can see we specialize on forward fuselages called the 41 section, and then engine nacelles, engine pylons that hold engines on the wings, and leading edges of wings. 787. Our latest product is a composite structure. We start that in a building with a clean room, winding the barrel with half-inch ribbon, carbon fiber ribbon, and out of that building comes a fully baked and provisioned fuselage section. So another concept that was made earlier was this whole idea of, we used to think about really stretching out the supply chain, getting raw material, and people doing specialized work at different places in the world or different places in your factory. And more our factories are getting to where we fabricate and get to major parts of assembly in a single building with as lean as possible a flow line. Since we became Spirit, we've added Airbus as a major customer. We bought a factory from British Aerospace in Prestwick, Scotland, and we do trailing edges of the A320 and a small part of the A380 wing. Although I'll have to tell you that is a giant piece of hardware. And then more recently, we're developing part of the fuselage and part of the wing on the A350 XWB for Airbus. We've also moved into some of the higher-end business jets. We built some wings for Gulfstream products and some engine pylons for regional jets. Military-wise, we do some products that are commercial derivatives used for the P-8A and the Boeing KC-46 tanker. We're also building the fuselage for the new CH-53 K Sikorsky helicopter. When I think about the challenges of our business, I'm a simple-minded guy. I think about what do I need to be successful in my business. I need products to build. You put all the systems engineering diagrams around all that, but what it really means is you got to have something somebody's willing to buy and that you're capable of building. So we need products, and we have products. And in many ways we're blessed. Tim will really resonate with this. We have tools on our manufacturing floor that were put there in the 60s that are still building product today because of the very long cycle business of these products. And we have tools that we're just now putting in place that are going to build products for decades. Think about this. Because of the length of our production runs and the length of our products, your grandkids will fly on 787s that we are just producing today. The 787 run will be 20, 25 years at least, and then those products will fly at least 25, if not many years beyond that. So we've got a little bit different life cycle product than consumer electronics, if you will. And so when we set a manufacturing plan in place, it needs to be robust and go forward. But we've got to have products, got to have people to do the job. We haven't talked a lot about people today. I'm going to spend more time on people. I don't have a single machine. I don't have a single high-tech computer system. I don't have a single spreadsheet that can operate itself yet. And I think, frankly, it'll be a while before I do that. So people link the system. That's something I learned years ago in a lean training that has resonated with me and stuck with me. And if your people aren't out there linking the systems and linking the products to whether it's to the customer or to the design or to the supply chain or what it is, if they're not out there actively linking the system, you're going to be in trouble quick. And of course, capital. So I think about what are the capital goods. We're highly capital intensive. We have great big machines that build great big machines, and so the capital requirements are intense. And frankly, when we decide where to operate, where to put new factories, we look at certainly transportation costs. We look at available labor. We look at what product can we put in this, but we also look at what's the capital requirement and where's it going to come from. And frankly, one of the challenges we have as an industry is there are a lot of nations that covet aerospace business, and they are willing to invest in capital and in people training and in product development in order to compete for this business. So in my mind, the challenge we have is to have taxes and regulation and those things that are not out of line to what this global competition is driving. And I will also say some consistency in these things. We see a major difference not in the regulations themselves, but in how they're applied from one administration to another. In some administrations, people like myself are viewed as productive citizens. People who bring passion to creating and sustaining jobs. In some other administrations, we're looked at as crooks that we need to catch because it's obvious we're doing something wrong. And I just think that mindset, some consistency, and I prefer the former, not the latter in consistency, frankly, but this ping-ponging back and forth is really challenging to run a business. And I think consistency probably has a lot more to do with it than the amount of or the onerousness of regulations. Although I tell you, I'm in several CEO groups, and there's a lot of my colleagues who would argue vehemently that it has a lot more to do with how many regulations there are. But certainly tax policy is important. You talked about research and development. You didn't talk about specifically research and development tax credits, but all those things are important to us too, where and how we deploy resources for the future. Certainly supply base, there's a lot of issues around consolidation. That part of the chart that was shown earlier of the number of businesses, I think if you dug a little bit deeper, and I know you probably have, there's a lot of consolidations. A business gets up to 500 or more, they become a target for consolidation. I was fascinated with the concept of talking about getting smaller businesses going all around, and micro businesses or whatever you want to call them. And I'm convinced that the whole concept we've operated with for years, which is bigger's better and cheaper, isn't always true. I mean, oftentimes there is economies of scale, but frankly, if economies of scale were all there were to it, Boeing would have never divested us. The fact that we didn't need some of the structure, some of the overhead, some of the support that a great big company like Boeing had actually allowed us to shrink down, become more efficient, become more focused, and become a better, more cost-effective partner. I've talked a little bit about global competition. I'm going to zero in on labor a little bit, cost, disruptions, healthcare, all those things. I was struck again earlier with the comment that why offshore, one of the reasons is because it's people who want to do it. I guess maybe we're fortunate. We live in our main factory is in Wichita. It's in an area where aviation / aerospace jobs considered a good one, and where people like those jobs and are proud of what they do. But I think it is important. I mean, if you are going to turn your nose up at a manufacturing job, companies like mine are going to go to places where people really want the job and they really want to do it. And I will say, though, I believe very much that's as much a leadership issue often as it is a fundamental social issue within the workforce. People want to be connected with something that's really important to them. Wasn't that an interesting comment about the soldier that loved the robot? I mean, wasn't that? I mean, I don't know about you, but that touched me. It reminded me of Wall-E. I'd been watching that with my grandsons the other day, but it's something about the human heart that wants to connect. That really wants to connect. And I'm afraid sometimes in this real focus and quest for innovation and the next new thing, we forget there's human beings out there who just really want to love something. They want to love their colleagues, they want to love their product, they want to love their job, they want to be They want to be real connected with what they're doing, and that's part of what we try to tap into at Spirit AeroSystems. And of course, another challenge we have, every business has, is the economic cycles, up and down. Historically, our industry, the aerospace industry, has been quite cyclical, been through a lot of layoffs, a lot of rehires, but I would submit that that's all based on the assumption that there's plenty of relatively inexpensive labor that you can always reach out and get. The day Spirit became a company, our average age was over 50 years old. And if a normal cycle, which is 10 years, if we hired up for the cycle and then turned around and laid off in the next cycle, you typically lay off the newer people. And if a typical cycle is 10 years, my average age would be 60. And you cannot sustain a business, you can't sustain a family, you can't sustain a society without a constant flow of capable people. So we knew we had to change the way we thought about and dealt with the fundamental economic cycles. And so what we've done, instead of lay off a bunch of people, when we've been hit with some downturns, we go to 3-day work weeks. Unheard of in the industry, frankly, certainly at the size that we're at. Actually not wholly embraced by some of our labor partners when we first did it, but in our last set of contracts, which incidentally are 10-year contracts, the labor representatives actually were arguing for shorter work weeks as part of the mitigation that we would manage through in the potential of a downturn. So interesting set of dynamics. And then on top of all this, we have the wonderful, wonderful base of unprecedented production rates. If you look at what's happened with commercial aircraft, we have now for probably 5 years been above our historic levels, and the future indeed looks bright. Although I'd point to the point right above that, which at some point in time this industry will, in fact, be impacted by economic cycles. Great industry. This is simply global GDP times. One of the wonderful things about our industry is that when people make a little bit more money, they want to fly. They want to go connect. They want to go somewhere. And so, of course, it ain't going to be like this. You can see history. History shows it's got some ups and downs, but the fact of the matter is, if you believe, as I do, that through time global GDP will increase, then the kind of industry we're in is not a bad one. You got to manage the cycles, but it's a great business. This is the decades behind us, the average number of deliveries per year, and you can see all we've done here is take the average gross domestic product with a multiplier on how much people are going to fly, and are projecting 1,400 deliveries per year in the industry. So let me shift a little bit to Spirit. Our mission is long-term value creation. You know what our products are. Industry-leading aerostructures, and we install systems into those. But we say it's all about knowledge, technology, and the people that operate it. You guys will be interested in this. When I came to MIT, I got taught that in business school you either had to be a leader, technology leader, or a fast follower. So you kind of set your business strategy based on how much you spend on R&D, those sorts of things, what your knowledge base is. I would argue that in our business we have to be both a cost leader and an innovation leader. And I think you'll all probably argue that that's not doable, but I would argue it has to be. And the reason it has to be is if we miss a product, we're not like a fast follower phone manufacturer who doesn't spend as much on on the innovation of the product, but just quickly follows with the same features. If I show up to my market 6 to 9 months later saying, hey, I'll build you that wing, I'll just build it cheaper, but I missed being on the design build team 9 months earlier because I didn't have the right technology and the right cost, I've missed the chance for that sale for 25 years. Because of the life cycle of these products. So when I show up at the door with a customer, if you don't believe me, ask Tim. I got to have technology to deploy, and I got to have costs that are going to allow the customer to make a good value on the products that we bring. So, in my mind, the only way to do that is to have a team fully engaged all the time in both innovation and productivity. And that's what clearly we try to do. Some of the challenges, I'm going to shift now and talk more about our labor team. We've known our labor representatives for decades. They were highly predictable in what they would do. I suspect from their perspective we were highly predictable in what we would do. We have the challenge of the long cycle business, the fact that global competition, even with nations and nation-owned industry coming in against us. And we had a decades-long psyche. In our psyche was the win-lose thought process with labor. We were paying above market wages. The union representatives expected guaranteed increases. We had 3-year-long contracts. The real question every time we'd go into a negotiation historically was, who's on top this time? Who's going to win? Who's going to lose? It'd be based on where the economy was, were we laying people off, were we hiring people, were we behind schedule, were we on schedule? All those sorts of things. We could not live in that. We couldn't sustain the business in that environment. So I personally went to the union leadership. I went to where they were training the negotiating team for the first of the big contracts we were going to have. And I sat down with the international head of the union and the negotiating team that was going to negotiate with us. And did my best to explain the difference in the business models. The long cycle was surely there. The fact that we had international competition was surely there. But I explained to them I couldn't stand a business as usual environment. A business as usual environment says we're going to choose today what the condition of the company is going to be like over the next 3 years. And I can't tell you. I can't tell you if we're going to be faced with very difficult economic downturns or a booming environment. Probably going to be faced with some of both during this period of time. And we talked through what it was that would keep the company healthy and keep our team for the future intact. When it came right down to it, what our workforce was most afraid of, and fear is an incredible motivator. Fear is an incredible motivator. What they were most afraid of is that we were not committed to them. That we would drop them in a heartbeat if we could and go somewhere else. And so what we did is we committed to them. If they help us make our company successful, we would share that success with them. And they didn't have to negotiate it away from us at the table from a base of fear that we were going to offload their jobs or worse than that, lay off half of them, and so on. So the new model is we've gone to highly variable pay. It's pegged to, part of it is how the company performs, and part of it is how the business units themselves and the group performs. We use this, if you will, as the backdrop. You heard me say keep the company healthy and the team for the future intact. We knew we needed stability our customers. We knew we needed flexibility to operate in the most cost-effective way. You know, contracts are usually based on 40 hours a week, Monday through Friday. Everything else is overtime. Sunday's double time. And you know, we began to explain to them how that makes us less and less competitive, drives us to other places. But it was done from a perspective of trust and how are we going to keep our company healthy. And we convinced the team that we really did care about them being part of the success of the company and not just an element of production. And I will tell you this, you guys, there's probably not a single one in this room that if wherever you're working today, if you were laid off or redundant, whatever that word would be, you were a part of a redundancy, if your company decided to relocate to another place, you're highly educated, you're highly motivated, you're professionals, you can go find something else to do. But a lot of people who work in our factories are convinced this is the best job they'll ever have. Now you think about that for a minute. Who's more committed? Who's more committed to the success of our companies? Is it the high-paid people that we hire in to think up great thoughts for us? Or is it people who really know that their livelihood is at stake, whether this company is successful or not? So part of what we did is we began to tap into that reservoir of incredible human power. Just by simply saying, you know, if we're successful, you'll be successful. And if we're not, you'll share the pain with us. And it's an interesting journey. We have long-term agreements in place. The longest we'd had before was 5 years when we became Spirit. A very collaborative relationship, a high degree of trust. In fact, one of the first calls I got when the tornado hit was from the union saying, what can we do to help? We'll be there. The International called us. Would you run the video? I just want you to see real quickly what we experienced here just 3 weeks ago.
Emergency now for the Wichita metro area. Confirmed large and violent, dangerous tornado located near Hayesville, moving northeast at 50 miles an hour. I think what we're looking at here, this is the tornado here. So we're talking areas right around McConnell Air Force Base.
Large tornado there on the ground. Again, right there. That is a picture of the tornado. This was the one that continued to make its way to the northeast and towards Spirit.
Inside our factory.
It's just after midnight and I'm right in front of Spirit on MacArthur, and you can tell there is just no traffic coming through because of this. It's all over in the road. It's debris from Spirit.
The security team had done exactly what they were supposed to do. They'd secured the area. We went right in, made sure we had all of our people out. All of our people had gone to shelter exactly like they were supposed to. We got them out without any incidents at all.
Nobody was injured.
Nobody was injured, which is kind of amazing. You go into our factories, they were pitch black. We lost both primary and backup power.
We first got here late Saturday, early Sunday morning. You can imagine just a lot of the devastation that was around us. So I'm very pleased to say that a lot of the infrastructure, a lot of the high dollar capital assets are well intact. And that's good news.
Things are looking better today, don't you think?
Much better.
We're getting a clear view of what we got to get done, and it's not as devastating as we had thought it might be. Still serious, still got a lot of work to do. Got to work safe. I know several of the buildings are starting to have some power come back. We just came through the main
Let's go ahead
thing
and
too a
shut
little
that
while
off,
ago, and there was some of the lights on. Of course, there's still light coming in from no roof in several areas, but do I cut it or do you? I guess you can't shut it off. It's like a tornado. When it comes, it comes. We've seen quite a transformation in the last week. It's really absolutely amazing to watch the team come together. So what I want to say, it actually, we went from estimates to get back to production that were literally weeks and months in some cases. We compressed that into 1 week. In 1 week, we were back with 100% of our employees back on site. Triaged buildings, patches, instead of some of the, beautiful buildings that our contractor wanted to do for us, but we got them back. We're now engaged, fully engaged with our team. I think it's a very, very strong probability that we'll be back on schedule by Memorial Day, and that's because the team, because the management team's so brilliant. Oh, I'm sure that's part of it, but it's because the people, we just simply said, this is what our business needs to be successful. This is what our customers need so they can count on us. And the people just went and did it and did phenomenal things. And it's all based on this idea of mutual commitment. Keep our company healthy, keep our team for the future intact, and they're going to find continually ways to manufacture cost effectively in the United States. And all we do is set in front of them what has to be done, and they help us figure out how to do it. So I probably have many other really fascinating things to say, but I'm going to stop there and see if you have any questions.